The Mirror Labyrinth. Chapter 1. The Missing Mirror. Detective Alan Drake hated the rain. At night, in the city center, the downpour transformed the glossy asphalt into a black, bottomless lake that reflected the neon signs like a vulgar promise. Alan sat in his old Chevrolet, parked opposite a mansion on Regent Street. The mansion belonged to Edgar Vance, an antique collector famous for his eccentricity and his absolute obsession with mirrors. Vance had vanished, not just walked out, but had evaporated from a room locked from the inside, leaving behind only one mystery. The only thing that had disappeared with him was his most valuable treasure, the Mirror of Truth, an ancient artifact rumored to show not the reflection, but the very essence of the viewer. Drake was met in the house by Inspector Harris, whose face was sculpted from fatigue and displeasure. "Alan, glad to see you. About as glad as a flat tire in a downpour. You know, this house is a labyrinth. And all these bloody mirrors." Harris waved a hand. They were standing in Vance's study. The walls were entirely covered in dark wood paneling and, of course, mirrors. Mirrors hung on the walls, stood on the floor. Even the ceiling was inlaid with small mirrored tiles. It felt like being inside a giant kaleidoscope. The lock wasn't forced. The windows are locked. The door was opened with a key that was inside. Under the rug, Harris pointed to the key lying in an evidence bag. A key under the rug inside the room? Alan frowned. Exactly. Vance was a paranoid. He had a double door, the outer one normal, the inner one reinforced. He always locked both. We found his briefcase with $100,000 in cash. Not a robbery. Alan walked over to where Harris said the Mirror of Truth had stood. A perfect square of dust remained on the floor, evidence that the object had been there for a very long time. "What kind of mirror is it? Besides the legends?" Drake asked. "Nothing special. Large, in a heavy frame, dark glass. Vance bought it at a private auction for a fabulous sum. He insisted it was alive. A madman, in short." Alan crouched down, examining the floor. No scratches, no drag marks. The mirror, weighing no less than 100 kilograms, seemed to have been lifted and carried away. But how, and by whom? Chapter 2. Phantom Trails. The only clue, a small, barely noticeable chip on one of the many wall mirrors that reflected the spot where the Mirror of Truth had stood. The chip was a perfect circle, as if struck by a tiny ball, but neither a ball nor any other object was found. Alan looked up. In one corner of the room, he noticed a subtle, fleeting ripple in a reflection, as if something had passed, but the room was empty, except for the two of them. "Harris, you said Vance was a paranoid. Who visited him?" "No one, Alan. He had no family. He wouldn't even let maids in, did everything himself. Only one person, his nephew, Gregory. Vance promised him the inheritance, but Gregory came this morning as soon as he heard. He's clean, he has an alibi. Was in another city, signing some contract." Drake approached the mirrored wall and began to systematically inspect them. He wasn't looking for fingerprints. He was looking for something anomalous. Vance was a mirror fanatic. He must have known their properties. "Harris, please send me the blueprints of the house, everything, down to the last ventilation shaft, and I want to know everything about the purchase of this Mirror of Truth. The seller's name, the auction house, who else bid on it." While Harris made the call, Drake paused in front of a tall, narrow mirror in a niche. His reflection looked perfect, but Not quite. His right eye in the reflection seemed darker than in reality. Alan blinked. The reflection blinked. He turned his head. The reflection did the same. The anomaly disappeared. Or he imagined it. Chapter 3. The Supplier's Secret. The auction house that sold the Mirror of Truth turned out to be a tiny, little-known firm in Europe that closed a week after the transaction. The seller, a certain K. Lang, whose trail was lost in the same city as the auction. But one fact caught Alan's attention. K. Lang had initially asked for a price 3 times higher than what Vance paid, but at the last moment agreed to a significantly lower amount. Why? Alan found a strange note in Vance's archives, written on the back of an old business card. Labyrinth, 4-7-14. Do not turn your back. 4-7-14? It could be a locker number, a code, Drake muttered, returning to the mirror labyrinth. He counted the mirrors. There were exactly 30 in the room. He began looking for a numbering system, but to no avail. Suddenly, his gaze fixed on the exact spot where he had seen the ripple in the reflection. It was a tall mirror, number 14 in his conventional numbering, directly opposite the one with the chip. Drake pulled it towards him. Behind it was not a wall, but another older, tarnished mirror, and beneath it, concealed, a small mirror, palm-sized, hidden in a secret compartment. A mirror in a mirror in a mirror, Drake thought. He picked up the small mirror. A labyrinth was engraved on its silvery surface. Chapter 4. Meeting the Heir. Alan called Gregory, the nephew, into his office. Gregory was a short, nervous man with shifty eyes. He seemed genuinely upset by his uncle's disappearance, but his hands trembled not from grief, but from something else. Gregory, tell me about K. Lang. Do you know anything about him? Gregory flinched. No, sir. Uncle never talked about his purchases. He was secretive. What about the inheritance? Did he promise you anything? Yes, everything. He said if anything happened to him, everything was mine, but I'd rather he was alive. Gregory seemed sincere. Drake showed him the small mirror. Have you seen this before? Gregory took it, examining the labyrinth carefully. No, but Uncle collected miniatures. Maybe this is one of them. Alan watched Gregory's reflection. The man in the mirror looked tense, but his eyes, the ones looking through the glass, seemed full of fear. At that moment, Drake realized one thing. Gregory was lying. You were in another city. Do you have receipts, tickets, anything to confirm your alibi on the day of the disappearance? Gregory hesitated. Only the signature on the contract. I don't keep all those papers. But I found one. An image from the surveillance cameras in your hotel parking lot. You arrived there but left an hour later, 5 hours before Vance's disappearance. You were in the city that night, Gregory? Gregory turned pale. I just didn't want to be suspected. Where is the mirror of truth? I don't know. I came to him to ask for money. He refused. We argued and I left. I swear I didn't touch it. Alan let Gregory go without arresting him. He knew Gregory was just a pawn. Whoever took the mirror was smarter, subtler. Chapter 5. The Fourth Door. Drake returned to the mansion with the blueprints. He focused on Vance's security system. Double door, alarm, all perfect. Vance couldn't have just walked out. He looked at the note again. Labyrinth, 4-7-14. Do not turn your back. 4-7-14. These were the mirror numbers. Drake found the mirrors with those numbers by his own system. They stood in a specific sequence, forming a corner. He stood in that corner. The reflection in mirror number 4 showed his back. In mirror number 7, his left profile. In mirror number 14, his right profile. He was surrounded by his own reflections. Alan took out the small mirror with the labyrinth and held it up to mirror number 7. At that moment, his reflection in mirror number 4, which showed his back, turned its head. Drake spun around sharply. The room was empty. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in logic. If a reflection can move independently, then it's not just glass. He looked at mirror number 4 again. It wasn't a mirror. It was a door. A hidden, artfully disguised door built into the wall and covered with amalgam to look like all the others. He pressed the conventional points corresponding to the numbers 4, 7, 14 on the frame. There was a quiet click, and mirror number 4 silently swung open, revealing a narrow, dark passage. "The 4th door," Alan whispered, entering. Chapter 6. The Room Without Reflections. The passage led to a tiny, completely bare room, with one light bulb overhead, and not a single mirror. In the corner, on an old stool, sat Edgar Vance, alive. He was wearing the same suit as in the photograph, but his face was hollowed out. Next to him on the floor lay the mirror of truth. The frame was intact, but the glass was shattered. "Drake, I knew you'd find me." Vance's voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you hide? And what happened to the mirror?" Vance struggled to lift his hand and pointed to the fragments. "It didn't show my true essence. It showed their true essence, those who created it, a door to another world. My paranoid measures, they were protection, not against robbers, against them." "Who are they, Vance?" "Reflections Merchants. K. Lang. That's not a name. It's a code. Collector of Labyrinths. They sold it to me to gain access. Inside the mirror of truth was an entity. It fed on reflections. My collection, it wasn't just decoration. It was a prison for it. All these mirrors, they dispersed its power. It was bait." "But how did it get out?" "Gregory, my nephew. He came for money and saw me looking into the mirror. I told him what it showed. He didn't believe me. He thought I was lying to hide the value. He came at night to steal it. When he lifted it, he weakened the seal. The entity broke free. It took his reflection, and then it left." Vance pointed to the spot where he was sitting. "That's why I couldn't leave. I had no reflection. I was nothing. I couldn't turn the key, open the door. I became a ghost in my own house. And then I saw—" Vance pointed to the chip on the mirror. "That's Gregory. In the last moment, he tried to smash it, but it was already empty. Only his remainder was left there. Gregory, where is he? He became the new mirror of truth. The entity entered him. It took his body and left him only a shadow in the looking-glass world. It left through mirror number 4, just as I feared. I saw him. He was wearing my clothes, holding the briefcase. He became me. And he got the inheritance." Chapter 7. The Extraordinary Ending. Drake, stunned, looked at the broken mirror of truth. Collector of Labyrinths. "And the small mirror?" Drake asked. "It's the key. It shows where the boundary lies. You are able to find it because you—" Vance paused, his eyes wide. Because What, Vance? Drake tensed. Because you saw your reflection turn its head when your back was turned. Drake remembered. The reflection in mirror number 4, which turned its head. He was alone then? Vance began to tremble. You couldn't have seen it. No one could. Only... Drake slowly took out his badge and held it out to Vance. I am not Detective Alan Drake. His right eye, which had seemed darker in that narrow mirror, was now completely black. My name is K. Lang, the collector of labyrinths. Vance gasped. The mirror of truth is not a prison. It's an instrument. I sold it to you to find myself. It shows the true essence of the viewer, and I didn't like my old reflection. I wanted to replace it. Drake Lang smiled. I found my perfect candidate, the real Alan Drake. He's in another labyrinth now, the one where my former reflection is. He believes he's investigating his own disappearance. I took his identity, his job, his old car, and I waited for it to lead me to the mirror. He walked over to the broken mirror, extracting a tiny dark shard from its fragments. And Gregory? He was just a side effect. The entity that left the mirror was just a heat sensor that alerted me when it was weakened. It did the dirty work for me. But why did you smash it? Vance croaked. Me? Number. Gregory smashed it, my first reflection. I had to make sure that my new image, strong, convincing, with an alibi, would become the new guardian of the labyrinth. So no one would know that I am here now. Vance, you saw my perfect copy, and now it's your turn. K. Lang raised the shard of the mirror of truth. On the tiny dark surface, Vance's reflection briefly appeared, but immediately distorted, stretched, and vanished. The door behind Drake Lang slammed shut. Vance sat in the small room, now definitively without a reflection, with no possibility of leaving his perfect prison. K. Lang, now definitively Alan Drake, stepped out of the mansion, got into the old Chevrolet under the pouring rain. He was a detective. He was free, and no one knew that his right eye would never reflect the light again. The neon of the city flickered in the black asphalt, and in this double, deceitful reflection of the world, the new Alan Drake felt absolutely in his place.